Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. And recently, Robert Kirkman went on to Comic Tropes, another comic book YouTube channel that's actually quite excellent. If you've never watched it, I'm shocked that you're here watching this channel and you haven't seen Comic Tropes. But he went on there, he did an interview, and in part 3, he kind of went to town on Marvel Comics and his time there, and about how it wasn't very fruitful for him. And here today to talk with me about this is my good friend, Yul Carter from Fantastic Comics. How you doing?
I'm all right. I remember reading a lot of the Kirkman stuff during his Marvel runs, so this is very interesting. It sheds quite a light on what was going on at the time.
Yeah, so Robert Kirkman, obviously, he's probably the best-selling, he's the best-selling independent writer there is right now. Obviously, he had The Walking Dead, Invincible. Right now, he's got Die, Die, Die. I think Oblivion Song's still coming out. What's the name of the new one that came out last week?
Firepower.
Firepower just came out last week. It was pretty smart promotion the way they did it. They had that Negan Lives like one shot, along with that kind of being sent out. I think it was 150,000 copies. Really smart way to get the comic book out there. I think that was their version of Free Comic Book Day for Image Comics. But when he was with Marvel, he wasn't exactly a nobody at that point, because he was doing Invincible. He was doing The Walking Dead. I don't think it was on AMC yet, but it was still one of the best-selling comic series out there.
Dude, if it wasn't for Walking Dead, there might not be an Image anymore. He was the main...
That and Saga, right?
Well, now Saga also. And there's been other titles, but I mean, it's all on the shoulders of Robert Kirkman. I think when we go back and look at a person who is independent, there might not be anybody that has gone as far as Robert Kirkman. And it's crazy that his time at Marvel was so mismanaged. This is like having a star quarterback or baseball player or movie star and putting them in the most, diminished role you could possibly put them in, and also not taking any of their, any of the work that they're putting into consideration. Crazy.
Yeah, it sounded like specifically he was talking about Joe Quesada a lot. He did mention that he thought working with Tom Brevoort, who I do talk about, and not the nicest light here on the channel, was great. He said he was a great editor, but anytime it sounds like anytime he had communication or had to work with Joe Quesada, it was absolutely a nightmare. One of the things he specifically mentioned was he was having these covers for the Irredeemable Ant-Man, and they kept changing his covers and adding like word bubbles with stupid sayings and stuff that didn't match the interiors. It didn't really match the character he was writing, and they wouldn't let him have input on the actual cover of the comic he was presenting. And that just seems like I can't imagine you would make a cover with words on it where you wouldn't consult the writer.
Yeah, I there's been like a lot of there used to be, like, back in the day, I forget who it was, we have to have certain types of covers because these are what sell books. And I can understand a company maybe, taking control over something like that. Where I thought it was ridiculous was when he, and I'm maybe I'm moving this too far ahead for this right now, but when he was suggesting, going out and promoting this stuff, and they wanted him to pull back on that. That is where, I mean, I can understand a cover at least a little bit, but he is the guy. I mean, I guess, I don't know. It feels like Marvel just had him there, and Quesada just wanted to like push Kirkman down and not really give him any say, or punish him or something. I don't know what he had. He must have had it in for him. Why hire him?
When you mentioned the him trying to go out and promote his own books, he wasn't only on big name titles out there at Marvel, and he mentions there's a marketing budget. Obviously, they're going to put the majority of that marketing budget into their events, into your Spider-Man books, your X-Men books, the stuff that really moves units, that draws people into Marvel Comics. And that completely makes sense. But he was saying, I was going out there, I was arranging for interviews with news programs, arranging to get the word out about my books, and it was driving Marvel nuts, which I guess it would have been very foreign to him because at Image he had a lot of say in the way that he promoted his own material. So it wasn't like he wasn't experienced. He knew how to conduct an interview. He certainly knew how to set things like that up and go out there and get the word out and try and bump up sales for his own work. And for them to step in and not allow it, I couldn't imagine how mad I would be.
Well, and then take a look at Marvel now. They still have a very small marketing budget, and they are telling people to go out and, promote the book.
Well, and a lot of times you'll see Marvel creators going out there berating fans and cursing people out and doing all kinds of obnoxious things on social media. And that's all allowed. No one ever steps in, but you have this professional in the industry who's now, he's an executive over at an Image. He's not exactly a small fry. Knew exactly what he was doing, and they were trying to rein him in. I couldn't imagine it. But it feels like Marvel, doesn't it?
Maybe Marvel was, maybe they were prognosticators when it came to how eventually people would treat people on social media. But, at that time, Robert Kirkman was just trying to sell those books, And yeah, I don't know. I understand wanting to have, again, total control over your own product because you own it. So even if you want to, you want as a creator the cover to be a certain way, even as an artist that does it, they have to redraw it if it doesn't meet whatever they need to have happen. And I don't know, was there a movie during that time? I can't even remember. It's like such a blur. No, there probably wasn't. But, I don't know. It's just companies are really weird that way. It's just the way they treated him is what really is a bummer about the whole thing. Because
the way he described it was that they treat him like dirt.
This is like a rising star, and if you look at what he is now, he is a partner at Image Comics. I mean, he's not one of the original 7. Hell, the original 7 aren't there. Mm-hmm. But you know who is? Kirkman, and he's running the show. and Marvel had him.
Todd McFarlane are really the face of Image now,
right? And Marvel had him. Like he was doing all sorts of stuff that. I mean, I thought he was heavy-handed in some of his writing, but compared to today, he was a gentle touch.
It's crazy the fact that he's going out there and giving interviews and giving these details lets you know that he would never go back and work for them again. They actually burn a bridge with maybe one of the hottest writers in the entire industry. Obviously, he's going to do majority of his work over at Image, but there's nothing that said he couldn't come back and do a one-shot or something like that. But
they did. Well, no, that was during his run, though. They even had Invincible in a team-up comic with Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken. Like they had that. Can you imagine Marvel Zombies versus The Walking Dead or whatever?
Well,
I don't know.
On Marvel Zombies, he was a big creator on there. That was a huge moneymaker for them. It's not like he didn't make Marvel money while he was there.
Right. I mean, he was on small titles. I mean, Marvel Zombies was way better than it had any business being. But it was very well executed, and it was of its time. It was for him to do a zombie comic over at Marvel, that was a cool thing. Marvel, I don't know, man. Maybe it was just. It's kind of like the WWE. If you are a person that gets over on your own, you're tamped down by Vince McMahon a lot of times. Maybe that's what Quesada's doing. He's like, oh, they still have PTSD from Image comic creators leaving them. And I'm sure like anybody that comes into the company, that should be the one thing that's like hammered in. We hate those guys. Over at Marvel, we hate those guys.
PTSD of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall showing up on Nitro, acting like they were still with the WWF, and
exactly, yeah, exactly.
But it's crazy. So there's another part where he talks about he was writing Ultimate X-Men in the Ultimate line, and there was going to be an Ultimate like big crossover event. And he was like, where is this going to be collected? Is this going to be collected in the Ultimate X-Men book, or is this going to be in like the Ultimate Spider-Man book? So he could tailor the story and kind of fit it into there so it would make sense. And I guess he got chastised. Let me find the quote on that one from Quesada.
This is very interesting.
This was via email. He kind of was asking him about these details so he could kind of get the story together. And this is what Joe Quesada emailed him back. Why don't you worry about the story before you worry about your X-Men royalties? Who cares about where a book is collected and who's getting the royalties from that story? Why don't you focus on the writing? What's wrong with you? Like, that's how you talk to children, man.
Well, and it shows you where his probably where Marvel's point of interest is, because I've heard it for many years that they don't like paying royalties, and they just don't like doing that. It's just not their favorite thing. And then when books get collected and then recollected, they still have to pay royalties. And for him to come out and that be like, well, I mean, if he remembers how it was, how it was said correctly, and that's the first thing that Joe Quesada says. He just cares about, he's the one that only cares about money. Joe Quesada is. He's the only one that cares about this guy getting royalties. This guy is straight up saying why he wants to think about how stories are written these days. There's nothing being crafted around other things. It's just written for that thing.
For the trade.
Yeah, exactly. And here he is he's trying to focus on things that will make sense for where they're going to be slotted for the reader. And it's like, this is like because he, again, he works in Image. He has self-published his own books before that. He knows that there are complications when you put things together, and it can mislead people or, affect sales of those later on down the line. And even if he was only caring about royalties, he's caring about making more money, which means you're going to be making more money. You
only get royalties on the book you sell.
Jesus. It's just, yeah, it's. I think Quesada did not like Kirkman. By the way, he just didn't like him.
Well, and then you can hear the frustration that he must have felt at the time. This is what, I don't think this was actually his response, but he said this was kind of like what he was thinking. I'm making crazy money at the time from Invincible and Walking Dead. My collections are doing great. I'm working for nickels over here at Marvel, and I get treated like crap. I get yelled at all the time for just trying to put an extra level of effort or extra level of care in the books. So that's really what got it down to. I think they resented the fact that it didn't need them, and it was a constant problem. I think he probably nails it right on the head, is that he didn't need them, and he could go do whatever he wanted. He already had Invincible. He already had The Walking Dead. He wasn't a Marvel guy, and they resented him for that because he had outgrown them, and he had transcended their brand.
But he wasn't making his fame working. They must still feel that even if you're the number one person outside of Marvel, and I don't know about DC, but maybe at DC, and you come over to Marvel, you are now having to start all over again. And it's like, well, why would he? Why would he? Mm-hmm. And it's not even that he's coming out and saying, they didn't give me Spider-Man, they didn't give me X-Men. He's not complaining about not having good illustrators on his books or anything like that. It's just, yeah.
Constant disrespect from
Constant
Joe Quesada.
Disrespect. Yeah. And maybe it is because Joe Quesada is still working sometimes, making comic books, and I don't know, he really did a good job making Marvel something that it wasn't during those times, and I thought it was a really good comic book time for Marvel. I read a lot of
EIC for a while.
He really was, and his Marvel Knights was good before that, and I think his ego, at least when it comes to Kirkman, just couldn't be overmatched, and he did
the best of him.
Yeah, it got the best of him, and as a result of that, They didn't abuse Kirkman near as much as they obviously should have. You know, this guy's like willing to do all of this for you, and I mean, maybe he's nitpicky about the covers. You know, maybe that irks you or something. Look at this guy comes in here and thinks, oh, these covers have to be a certain way because he's Mr. Big Shot over at Walking Dead. You know, but. Come on. Greg Rucka got Frank Cho fired basically for Wonder Woman.
Well, and Marvel would kill for sales on something that was an original character like he had on Walking Dead. The only thing that they can really sell are the classic characters. I mean, there have been some hits that have come in along the way, like Deadpool, obviously being a more contemporary character. Cable is a little bit more of a newer character, but it's not like they just create new characters and put them out there and sell them like hotcakes. You know, and Kirkman actually had a record of doing that. It's just, it's insanity, but it kind of falls into line with the story of a lot of the things I do hear about behind the scenes about the way that they negotiate and the way that they treat their talent. And I've talked to a few people. They're like, I could never go back. Just the way that they negotiated contracts, the way that they didn't really want to compensate you for your hard work. And here you have somebody that's trying to go above and beyond. Go out there and promote your work for you since you're not doing that, and they're trying to just drag him down.
Yeah. These are the games you play. Office politics, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess he needed to be friends with Bendis.
That would have helped. I mean, maybe he is. I have no idea. I don't think so. Not that I know of, at least.
Not from the story I'm hearing. I don't think Bendis' friends got treated like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Bendis seems to have a good in with the companies when he's working with them.
He is definitely he's a mover and shaker on the inner office politics.
That's right.
So, yeah, it's a crazy story. Definitely, if you haven't checked out the interview with Comic Tropes, it's really good. Like I said, it's a great channel. Certainly a better channel than mine, right? It's got to be. It's a better channel than yours too, Yule. He's got a better comic book YouTube channel than both of us, probably put together.
Yeah, I would never
definitely go check it out.
I would never listen to a full episode of Fantastic Comics Presents if I didn't have to. But
you have to just to edit it, right?
That's right. Edit, please.
Oh, you don't edit.
It's all live. It's all live.
So, all right, yeah, I thought that was really interesting and really illuminating. Just the way a superstar created like that. He obviously wasn't quite who he is today, but he wasn't a nobody either. He had hits going out, bigger hits than things that Marvel were producing. He was making money, and they'll treat anybody like that, I guess.
And, truthfully, his Marvel run, with the exception of Marvel Zombies, was pretty lackluster. And it didn't, I mean, he had a lot of promise, and I thought there was going to be a lot of, cool Marvel stuff that he was doing. But hearing all this stuff that's going on now, you can totally see why he probably didn't have his entire heart in it. Especially, when he probably was getting like that X-Men gig, he's like, yeah, I'm like, finally, Kirkman's going to get X-Men. And it's like, But, he's been beaten down so long. I mean, it wasn't like he was there like for, a decade or anything. It was just a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But, he... It's depressing. It's depressing seeing that. There was that was a great time of Marvel comic books, and you had a guy that's going to be the person that he is now. Then, and you didn't take advantage of it. It's short-sighted, and it's there's jealousy.
And he's a big name, and he's over there in Image, and they have a lot of big talent. And if I'm an Image, and I got something like, hey, I was talking to Marvel, they're offering me a gig. What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't think you should go to Marvel. This is my story. It's not very pleasant.
Yeah. And this isn't the only person. There's been other people that have come out and talked about Joe Quesada, and it doesn't sound so flattering.
No, not really. All right, Yule. I've probably taken up enough of your time here today. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. This is really interesting information, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on.